Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. I'm here to read Book 5, Chapter 16 for Benight and Beguile. Chapter 16 is the final chapter of Book 5. So, here we go. London, England. It had been more than a month since Genevieve left Welshport to find David Lord. Her whole life had been put on hold the day she became fused with the spirit of her doppelganger, the late Sabrina Spencer Lord. Sabrina's ghost now lived in Genevieve and had given Genevieve all of her memories, her life force, and the love for David that she felt was alive and secretly hidden in London. But for all Genevieve's hopes of finding this mysterious man that she had a strange attraction to without even knowing him, she had no luck. The one photo of David she had brought with her from a Terramore photo box because tatered and crumpled everyone she encounters in London and has shown a photo had no idea who the man was or if he was even in the foggy English capital. Um, London's a big country. So, feeling defeated on this evening, Genevieve left a small restaurant on a cobblestone street in the West End. The snow had started to fall. She bundled herself up in a quick, thick winter coat that she had purchased in London, and pulled the hood over her head, quickly making her way back to the hotel room she had rented in a quiet, gas lamp lit neighborhood. She turned a corner and noticed a man in an alleyway between two old buildings standing in the shadows. She passed him and hurried her pace home through the oddly deserted London streets. The shadowy man followed. Genevieve could feel his pace quicken towards her. She felt her heart beat faster. She continued to push her tired body, the wet, cold air, trying everything she could to evade this mysterious person. Behind her all the while, telling herself not to turn back, that's important, to keep her head forward and keep going. Just blocks away from her hotel room, she made a mistake and turned to look at the man following her, and then, with a sudden and quick motion, he pushed her to the street where she hit her head on the pavement, knocking her out cold. Hours later, Genevieve's body sore and her head aching from the bump to the ground, awoke in a strange, small bedroom with a fireplace blazing in front of her as she lay on the made bed. Next to her on a small table was piping hot fresh tea and a small ham and cheese sandwich cut into two perfect triangles. The clock next to the sandwiches marked 15 minutes to 10 p.m. I'm just going to say this. John, buddy, you wrote a stocking. Oh, I'm going to tell him, buddy. You wrote a stocking scene. You could write Halloween. Genevieve couldn't believe how late it was. She had been unconscious for the full fall for 3 hours. From the fall for 3 hours. She looked around and saw a man's coat and hat hanging on the back of the bedroom door. There were no framed photos. There were only books and books. So many books in the room. She slowly sat up in the bed. As she did, the room door creaked open. The man walked in. Genevieve gasped and sat back on the bed and moved herself closer to the headboard in a fluff of taffy of her street-stained skirt. Get back, I say, she shouted at the man With her left arm extended to keep him back, the man turned from the door to face a woman he took from the street. The woman he knew had been all over London for weeks and weeks searching for David Lord. He was tall, dark haired, with a beard. His eyes were hazel and seemed sad and lonely. Eyes that had a story to tell that only he could say. He looked at Genevieve, and she couldn't believe her eyes. "Who are you?" the man's voice said in a surprisingly American accent. "Why have you been passing around a photo of me?" Genevieve narrowed her eyes when she heard his surprisingly kind sounding voice, a voice void of the English accent she expected. Then she moved closer as he did, and when he stepped closer into the candlelight there was by the bed, she then realized whom she was staring at. Seeing the man's face in the light shocked her. "David," Genevieve gasped. "David, it is really you." Um, Laura looks over his old letters. Back in Welshport, in the modest, warmly decorated, home, I'll get it right, Laurel Ward laid her 4-year-old granddaughter Samantha down for a nap in her pale pink painted room with a mountain of fluffy stuffed toys cuddled in the corner. As she slowly closed the bedroom door and peeked in one more time at sleeping Samantha, Laurel took a deep breath. It was a bit earlier than Samantha normal nap time, but Laurel had the conversation she had with her husband Peter in her mind about reconnecting with her long estranged friend Rebecca Lord Cassiter. It bothered Laurel that she couldn't speak to Rebecca and catch up like old friends do after all these years, but the pain Rebecca held in her heart toward Laurel would never ease, and Laurel knew that. Laurel slowly walked down the freshly varnished hardwood floors of her home and stepped into her bedroom, where she had a beautifully decorated cedar box that had an iron heart-shaped lock. She removed a key from a dresser drawer hidden under freshly washed clothes and opened the box. It was where in it, were letters to Laurel that she had saved from a woman who had taken care of a child Laurel had helped locate and adopt many years ago. Laurel had these letters for many, many years. She didn't even know why she had kept them. Perhaps she felt she needed them just as a record that she did the right thing, passing this child off to a family could take care of the baby after what it had been through. She pulled down of the very old envelopes and pulled out the handwritten letter and read it. "There is no way I will ever know if what happened to her has affected who she will become. I should hope that what you and Lady Lazarus, of whatever she is called, did to her, it will be nothing but a memory of yours and not of this beautiful baby. I see nothing, no signs of that bizarre trauma you are insisting she faced. Laurel, she's safe with me now. Let this be our final letter." Laurel refolded the letter and placed it back into a yellow tangled envelope. This child was a very special child, a child that had been gone from the world and brought back again, but in a way that Laurel felt was unnatural. In fact, the baby born decades ago was around 25 years old now, and safe, far, far away from her bizarre, unknowing past. The entire ordeal was a secret Laurel kept from her husband Peter, and most especially it was kept from Rebecca and the entire Lord family. Oh no! I would say this. talk, I would talk to John about this tonight, but I'm just gonna give my thoughts here too. That the baby is Vicky Lord, or Vivi Lord, the girl that Rebecca had that she thought Eliza killed, but Eliza actually brought the baby back. The baby was brought back to life somehow. That's oh wow, that wow. So there are a lot of things here. I'm going to talk to John about this that he's already setting up for book 6, which is really really good. You don't want to not have stuff for your other book. He's already he's already planting his seeds here. Um, Over on Good Island, Mary, Charlotte, and Morgan's frantic search for Philip, the missing Philip, or Philip, overtook the afternoon. The mother and daughter had no idea where he had gone and was nowhere to be found on Good Island. Morgan came in from the cold air and shook his head again to Mary and Charlotte. No sign of him. Mary signed, "Come here, sit by the fire. We have tea for you to warm yourself." Why would he have just vanished like that? His injuries were too severe, Morgan noted as Mary bounced baby Caleb in her arms. "I can't imagine he would have made it far alone," Mary said. "Do you think someone would have helped him too?" "Who?" Charlotte wondered. Mary shrugged. "Is there nothing you can do?" Morgan whispered to Charlotte, as he knew of her powerful psychic abilities. "You were able to tell my mother about David being in London. Can't you do the same for your mother and Philip?" Charlotte thought about it, but wasn't able to sense Philip. In fact, she had tried to find him psychically, but nothing had came through. Um, I, I wonder if that's because he's going to be half animal now, or werewolf. I wonder why, because again, he's not just a man anymore. "I don't know if I can," she answered. Um, "Can what?" Mary said, re-entering the room. Now that the baby, now that baby Caleb had been lulled to sleep, Charlotte gulped. What if we tried to find him with my abilities? Your abilities, darling. I know you feel some sort of connection to the world of the psychic, but you're so young. You don't control those abilities freely. You're very new. They're very new to you. I don't want you to stress your mind. We know what happened to you a while ago. You had a seizure." "Yes, but I think I can. I think I can do this," Charlotte said. Mary thought about it for a second, but realized Philip's life was in danger. His injuries, the cold, the fact that he most likely wasn't in his right mind, alone dealing with possible infections. She had no time to waste, and no resource would be unwelcome. Mary grabbed Charlotte's hand and led her to the kitchen table. Each sat at one end of the table and reached over and held hands. Charlotte and Mary closed their eyes, and Mary began to chant a spell in Latin that Charlotte then began to repeat. With Mary's magical powers and Charlotte's psychic abilities, they were sure to find Philip, whose attacked wolf attack had left him almost dead in their arms. Together, the two were seeing the same images in their minds: a flower that was withering in the cold winter, a sky filling with dangerous dark clouds flowing over the land and sea, a moon lifting in all its glory and glowing in the black sky, then the howling of a wolf in the distance of a dark forest. And together in this dark forest stood Mary and Charlotte holding hands, all of it constructed within their minds. They were powerful sources of supernatural energy. In this dark forest, the full moon guided the two Spencer heirs as they searched for clues as they were where Philip had may have gone. A dark stream of black water flashed a reflection of the moon. A cold wind blew across their brows, causing a shiver to go down their spines in equal measure of terror. I don't feel him, Charlotte said, looking out over the forest, and suddenly began to grow darker as if the moon was covering the sun in an eclipse. Keep your eyes open, Mary said, inside their minds as their real bodies had remained eyes closed and seated at the table. Morgan watched from the fireplace, his heart pounding in his chest as the fire warmed his little 14-year-old body. Back in their minds, the howl of a wolf once again shook them. I don't feel him. I can't feel him or see him, Charlotte said again, her voice sounding panicked. Don't worry, we have to keep going, Mary said. Then, as the two made their way deeper into the blackened forest of night, a wolf stepped out from behind the gray trees and growled, and it snarled with a mouthful of teeth. In seconds it leaped into the air and lunged at them, ripping at their flesh. The attack startled them so much their eyes flipped open at the table and they pulled back their hands from the tight grasp. Mary rushed over to Charlotte and checked for bites, but she was unscratched. It felt so real, Charlotte said. Yes, Mary replied, realizing her daughter's mind was stronger than she realized. And then as they both checked for signs of the wolf on their skin, a frantic knock at the cabin door, the pounding of on the wood, froze Mary, Charlotte, and Morgan where they stood. Stay where you are, both of you, Mary instructed, as she slowly walked over to the cabin door that continued to be bludgeoned by the person on the other side. Mary paused to grab a fire poker and stuffed it into the fire, heated it up, and then walked to the door. Yeah, that would hurt. That's gonna hurt. She stood there. The door banged again. She lifted the red-hot fire poker up into the air and opened the door to find Fatima Braga standing there freezing and with a face as white and frightened as if someone had seen a ghost. Mary recognized her from the day that they in the village and quickly let her in. Do not search for my nephew. Do not search for him ever, Fatima said. What? Where is he? Do you know where he is? What happened? Mary asked frantically. You must all beware of what he is now. Something awful has occurred, and I've taken him from here to keep you all safe, including my nephew, Fatima explained. Fatima grabbed Mary's hands and held them in her own cold ones. I beg you, from everything I have in me, to stop any search of him. I have taken care of him for now. He is safe. Mary pulled her hands out of Fatima's hold, and her face furrowed. How dare you? How dare you come here and tell me not to search for the man I love? We have a child that is in that room that misses him. We have begun a small family, a family that he and I have wanted to have for years and years, and we were getting that family, and now you have taken him. You've taken him, and you're telling me to stop searching for him. You're insane. He told me you were something strange. He warned me about you. Where is he, Fatima? Tell me now where he is. Is he? You don't understand, Fatima shouted. You have to tell me where he is. He's very sick. He was injured in a wolf attack, Charlotte replied, trying to calm the situation. It's true. I was there, Morgan replied. If we don't find him, he might not make it. So if you took him, then you must know how injured he is. Please, please bring him back, or at least take us to him. You all don't know, do you? I thought you would understand being from such a powerful coven, but you don't know, Fatima replied in a slight chuckle. Mary lifted a brow at her comment about a coven. It worried her that Fatima knew about the heritage of witches in her bloodline. No one should know. Tell me where he is, Mary said with a cold tone in her voice. Um, I've taken him, and yes, I know his injuries are serious. He is recuperating somewhere safe from you. Oh, until it is over, Fatima said. Until what is over? Charlotte asked. O Lobo de Loco, Fatima replied. Mary shook her head, not understanding Portuguese. My nephew is now a victim of a wolf of the full moon. He'll wreak havoc to all living things on the night of the full moon, and because of this, I have taken him and placed him somewhere where no one will find him. He'll be safe. No, that's preposterous. It can't be, Mary exclaimed. Mary, your cousin was a vampire. Okay. It's all true, every last bit of it, Fatima said through her eyes that were beginning to fill with tears. Yeah, she's realized it's true. Every full moon from here on until my beautiful nephew leaves this planet, he will have to be hidden away because of this creature, this that his body turns into. No one can ever know this. Do you understand me? This is how it shall be. He, she looked around again and stared into Mary's eyes, into Charlotte's, into Morgan's eyes. She wanted to be sure they understood that when the full moon rose high on the sky, just like in the visions Charlotte and Mary had as they tried to find Philip by psychic means, Philip had to go into hiding. This is how it shall be, Fatima replied again, forever. So, a worried Ashia summons Rains to the hospital. At Wellsport Hope Hospital, Constable Gregory Rains entered the lobby in a flurry of snow and wind as the fresh powdering fell down on the island. It had been summoned to the hospital. He had been summoned to the hospital by Dr. Ashia Hoffman in a private letter that was sent by courier from the hospital to the constable's office to mask her request as part of an official visit. But this was on a personal level. She had deep concerns over what they had done to Aurora and her child. It didn't take long for Ashia to see her good friend and co-conspirator as she came out of the side office where she had been in a meeting with the Chief of Staff, Dr. Peter Ward. Constable, what brings you in to our neck of the forest? Dr. Ward asked. Ashia gulped. I asked him to meet me, Dr. Ward. We had a meeting about a patient of mine that I saw privately. Privately, Dr. Report replied in a surprise. Dr. Hoffman, you're not at all authorized to see patients on private terms. What was the meaning of the patient's request? She had a cold, Dr. Ward, nothing more. It was just the wife of an old friend that was bothering him about her cold, and I asked Dr. Hoffman to calm her. Surely it wasn't anything more than that, Gregory chimed in, lying. Oh, a cold. Then why the meeting? Ward questioned. Gregory looked at Ashia for help. Well, I wanted to make sure that Constable Rains understood I wasn't allowed to see patients on my own outside the hospital yet, especially without your authorization. So I asked him here as sort of a reprimand of sorts, as she has said, with a slight chuckle. Dr. Ward, who was no slouch, could see through their very flimsy story, and since there was a possible something amiss with the meeting in the first place, but seeing as this was perhaps a personal issue, and that the two were in some sort of lover's triangle due to a strange and secretive nature of their body language, he decided to get himself out of the way of any kind of romantic drama. Dr. Ward lifted a brow and shook his head. Just make sure the meeting is quick, whatever it is. We have rounds this afternoon. Ashia nodded her head and brought Gregory into the meeting room and closed the door behind her. We can't meet this way. Dr. Ward clearly saw through us, Gregory said in his hushed tone. Gregory, this could not wait. I don't care what Peter thinks. I had to see you, as she exclaimed. What happened? She had checked the door again and made sure that there was no one on the other side. It's Aurora. I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret. She ran into Mary Good and the child in town, and I could have sworn she knew that that was her child. She knew, Gregory. I know she did. Gregory grumbled. That's impossible. It's not. She's a mother 3 times over. A mother knows her child. I swear on everything she knew, or at least she felt some kind of connection to him. We have to find a way to fix this. We have to. If Nicholas discovers I had anything to do with this, be over for me and him, and I just can't risk it, as she replied. As she listened to me. You have to stay the course. There is no way Aurora knew or can know what we did. Do you understand me? No way at all. Just as the two were extending their plot, Nick came over to the main hospital from Churchill Green Asylum building to deliver his weekly papers to Dr. Ward. Dr. Ward was eager to check on his findings on the patients he had been working with. These look very good. Well done, Dr. Jordan. I'll take over the rest and give you some feedback, but in my opinion, you're doing a wonderful job now that you're not letting patients leave the hospital without my signature, Ward said, noting Nick's error in releasing Rebecca and Caspin prematurely. I've learned my lesson, Nick said, nervously smiling. Have you seen her? Dr. Ward nodded that he did and pointed to the side office just over in the corners of the marble-floored lobby. Nick thanked Dr. Ward and walked over to the office. Nick grabbed the doorknob, ready to enter, when he heard Ashia's voice sounding in a panic. Instead of opening, he listened. I don't think you understand. She knew. She absolutely knew. Gregory sighed in frustration. There is no way she could have known, Ashia. None. We told Aurora she had a girl, and that girl died. Mary has a boy. How would she ever connect the dots when we drugged her? She was unconscious. She never even saw the baby. I'm telling you. She shouted back at Gregory. Hushed her. She knew. Nick felt his stomach drop. He couldn't believe what he just overheard. He could not believe what the woman in his life, the woman he had given so much credit to for trying so hard to right the wrong over her previous lies, suddenly confessed to something so dastardly. Could it be? Could she and Gregor truly have done what they said they did to his own mother, Aurora? Nick listened more. Let me take care of the rest. I'll talk to Aurora and ask her things to see if she'll drop any hints of knowing anything. And I guarantee you she will not know. And even if there is the slightest bit of doubt in her, I will make sure to dismiss it. Just trust me. Eventually, soon, this will all be over, Gregor said. Do what you have to. Just make sure I'm kept clean of this. Nick can never know. I helped you, do you understand me, Gregory? Promise me. I will not be attached to the outside of this. The outcome of this. You have to take it all on your own, as she has said. Nick will never know. This is your secret. This is our secret. If the two of us keep it between the two of us, then we're safe. Do your part with Nick, and I'll do mine with Aurora, Gregory said. Nick's eyes welled up with tears, but they were not tears of sadness, they were anger. She had once again betrayed him, and this time was an even crueler lie, one that involved his mother and now his baby half-brother that he never knew he had. The child Nick believed to be his half-sibling was supposed to be a girl and was supposed to have died at birth, and the truth was out, and Nick had a bomb that he did not know what to do with. As she opened the small office door and Nick had vanished, both she and Gregor never knew he was there. As the two said a quiet goodbye to each other, Dr. Ward once again came over to discuss the rounds with patients he had wanted to visit. To discuss their prognosis, Dr. Ward handed her the patient charts to her to review. "Did you have a nice visit with Nicholas?" Ward asked with a grin. "What, you mean Gregory?" she asked. "No, Nicholas. Dr. Jordan came to drop off his papers for review and asked for you. I said you were in the meeting room. Didn't you see him?" Ward wondered. His face turned white. Her heart felt like it stopped. Her secret was now in the hands of the one person she wanted to keep it from the most, Nicholas Jordan, the love of her life. Later that night, in the room in the third floor of the east wing of Terramore House, Jonathan Diviney lay the sultry nude body of Jacqueline Gray down on his fluffy white sheet bed. They had met earlier that night at the Siren's Call pub, where they had gotten to know each other a little, and then their hands touched. With their hands touched the witch. Jacqueline saw something in a vision straight from the conscience of Jonathan's own mind. She saw Jonathan attack someone and perhaps kill them. The vision horrified at first, but her biggest flaw was her heart yearned for love, for companionship, and through her loneliness she fell for the handsome Jonathan and his sexy smile despite the horrible vision. Their bodies became one as they made love passionately in his bed. She felt as if the earth, the moon, was spinning out of the alignment just as they kissed, and felt every inch of their bodies and their hands. Their lips were like flickering flames burning together. Their eyes watered with the heat of passion. After their passion lovemaking, they lay in each other's arms as the trickle of sweat slid down their slopes of their shoulders and hips. Jonathan lit a cigarette and puffed the smoke in the air toward the ceiling. "Are you okay?" he asked her after a puff. "You're so quiet." She turned over and looked him in his deep brown eyes. The memory of the vision flooded her mind. After her fervent moments of lovemaking, she was desperate to know more of his secret. "I'm fine. I'm glad we met," she said. "Me too. This could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship if it carries on like this," Jonathan joked. "True friendship hold a sense of honesty with the two involved," she said as he lifted a brow. "Right," he answered nonchalantly, as he slid over from their hug and got up, new to put on his clothes. Jacqueline stared at his body. His beautiful brown skin seemed to sparkle the light and the flickering of the fireplace. He was as exquisite as she was, but still a mystery. The vision from his mind. Then they touched hands, still haunted her. Again, she wanted to know more. She wrapped herself in the white sheet and slid over to a kiss. He put the cigarette in between his fingers and smiled at her, seeing she wanted more of their connection. She kissed him deeply, put her hands around his neck, holding him in a deep, passionate kiss, one that would allow her to go into his mind once again. As they kissed, the vision returned, just as it was from the Siren's Call. She saw Jonathan fighting with a man in the shadows. The man fell to the floor with his face covered in darkness. When Jacqueline could not see, Jacqueline did all she could to find out who the man was. If he had been killed, there was something about the man's shape, his body, that seemed familiar to her. That's why she was so interested. That's why she was so drawn to this vision. It called to her. It forced to see who had made her crave the answer to who the mysterious man was. The vision flipped to Jonathan taking the man, dragging his limp body to a place that Jacqueline did not understand, as it too was all blurry, blocked by dark shadows of gray and black. She wanted to know more. She had to know more. In the bedroom, she brought him back to his bed and unlatched his belt again, never allowing their lips from parting. Jonathan laughed and tried to pull away, but Jacqueline was insatiable and wanted to bring him to a place where she could control his thoughts by locking him in a passionate thrust in bed again. And she succeeded. They began to make love again, their bodies connecting, squeezing together, then pulling apart, and Jacqueline then out her hands on his bed and froze him in place. He was locked now in place. She entered his mind. Then, in his memory again, Jacqueline searched to see who he had attacked, who he had dragged to a shadowy place. Where were they? What were they doing? Was this mystery man? She watches as slowly at the memorial of Jonathan's began to clear, and the shadows lifted, showing it was the cemetery, St. Thomas Cemetery. She watched as Jonathan placed the man in a secret place in a tomb, and when the lid of the secret door was about to close, the shadow man's face lifted to reveal Sebastian's face. Jacqueline gasped and snapped out of his memory and back into the love-making. She pulled away, surprising Jonathan. "What is it? What happened? Did I do something wrong?" Jacqueline got up and grabbed a sheet and wrapped herself again and noticed a pink light seeping in from behind the drapes as dawn approached. As the lights of the very early morning touched her caramel-toned beautiful face, in horror of what she saw in her vision was just clear as the coming day. Sebastian didn't leave her. She didn't abandon her as she thought. It was Jonathan. Jonathan had taken Sebastian and hidden him. To be clear, not because he was in love with Jacqueline. No. Who knows how that woman's crazy. That woman, she's something else. Downstairs, the Lord family sat in a contentious and uncomfortable group in a cherrywood drawing room, awaiting the breakfast bell in the large dining room. Down the corridor, they had recently reunited with Rebecca, returned to her family home, newly married to the man that had recently been possessed by the devil. Their connection was a strange one, and the family certainly seemed to feel none of it was legitimate. At least those were the hopes of Jacob and Celeste, whose hopes of ruling the Lord family empire were dashed when Rebecca's new marriage thwarted the coup. Rebecca stood by a roaring fire and sipped on a warm tea with Charlotte and her son Fabian, the boy being just one of many apples of Rebecca's eyes. "He's grown so much since I last saw him," Rebecca said. "He has, yes," Charlotte replied as she tickled her son's nose with hers. "I hope you won't hold too much of what happened over me, Rebecca. After all, I only want to build something for my son's future." "Is that right?" Celeste took a breath. "It's true, Celeste. You're a young mother, a woman who I've known since you were a girl of 8. I knew your father and your mother. I even remember the day your brother was born. You worked as a trusted member of our staff for years, so I know you better than you think I do. Whatever you thought you were doing to aid Jacob in his power play would never have worked because of you," Rebecca answered. Celeste lifted a brow at her mother-in-law. "And why do you say that?" The fire warmed their skin as it flickered flashes of yellow and gold in their eyes. As Rebecca flashed Celeste a coy half-smile. "Because, my dear, unlike you, he's self-destructive. You are stern, level-headed, and honest to your core. You would never have let things get to a worse point. What you two did to me and Evie would have eaten away at you eventually. Then it would have all imploded all around you. Jacob is a live wire, unpredictable and impulsive, and most of all as lethal as he is foolish. I don't, Celeste, before as Rebecca's words slowly seeped in her mind. And least we forget Jacob's very short attention span to, shall we say, tastes and partners. When something new and fresh walks through the door, and no doubt it will, your head would have been on the chopping block. The company has never been Jacob's end-all. It's only a temporary squeeze of adrenaline for him. Just be cautious with your own ambitions, cautious and smart. My ambitions are solely to keep my son in his place in this family, not to be discarded like Charlotte has been, Celeste replied sternly. Charlotte left here on her own, and I wish she hadn't. I miss her dearly. But she made a choice to be with her mother, and I respect that. You should too. Of course we do. But she also took Morgan with her. Morgan was my half brother's care. She shouldn't have done that, Celeste noted. Rebecca smirked. It doesn't seem like your brother was worried about Morgan anyway. I saw him come home with a very lovely woman. They're upstairs now. He's got other things on his mind, a lord through and through. Celeste cleared her throat and put little 2-year-old Fabian on the floor to play with his blocks. She didn't know much about her brother's love life, but didn't thought it move on from Genevieve so quickly. She then turned to see Jacob to see him drinking coffee with Caspian. The two were oddly uncomfortable, yet seemed cordial. You won't get away with this for long, Jacob whispered to Caspian. There is nothing I'm trying to get away with, Jacob. Your mother and I have come to be to a very good understanding about who we are and what we've done. We've been pulled together in a very unique circumstance. I'm grateful for the chance she's given me. Caspian replied calmly, revisiting Jacob's bait for a fight. That is until you see Aurora again, Jacob said with a bite. Aurora, Caspian said softly. No, what happened with Aurora was terrible. Terrible mistake that I had no control over. Everyone knows that I was not in my right mind. When Caspian paused before words possessed by the devil came out of his mouth. When you were what, Caspian, old boy? Go on, say it. When I was ill, Caspian sighed. Ill, Jacob exclaimed with a laugh. Now that's putting it mildly. You dragged that woman practically into hell and forced her to think you were someone else, then made a child with her. A child, by the way, she would not want, knowing who the father would be. The devil himself. Ill? Yes, ill, Jacob continued to push. I wish I could take it back. From what we've heard, she lost the child at birth, and it must have been horrible for her, Caspian said, sipping from his drink. The terror of having a child with the likes of you probably did her in, Jacob replied coldly. But then again, no one would have blamed her if she got rid of the kid herself. I mean, my God, to have a child with a demon. Jacob, enough, Caspian shouted as Rebecca and Charlotte turned to look. I was not in my right mind. You know it. We all know it. I was under some kind of possession. I would never have done the things that I did in my real state of mind. In fact, I'm beginning to believe I was someone else entirely before this even happened. Everyone paused, unable to process the bomb just dropped. The idea that Caspian may have had another life before his possession. You're delusional, Jacob scoffed, breaking the silence. What are you saying? Celeste asked the former demon. I couldn't have always been this person. I just feel in my heart, I want you to all know, I feel like in time, with Rebecca's love and trust, I can perhaps find out who I really was before I became possessed. There must be answers, Casper replied. Rebecca sighed. Jacob, however, narrows his eyes with doubt, and he lifted a brow suspiciously. I guess we'll see about that, or learn a good lesson about trusting the devil twice. He's the same, you see, Rebecca said to Celeste. What? She answered. It can't last, I tell you. This new version of Jacob you're convincing yourself to trust, and is truly true to you and to your boy, Rebecca said of Jacob's seemingly reformed demeanor. But his new version of Caspian we can trust, Celeste shot back. Now you listen to me, Rebecca began before being interrupted. He has changed. Celeste continued. We're a team. Together we've done a remarkable job. I wish you'd give your son the benefit of the doubt. Rebecca laughed. Oh, my darling, you really are in love with him, because only love would have you this blind. I wish you'd have more faith in him, Celeste said again. Maybe that's why he is the way he is. Maybe if you were a better mother to your children, none of them would have turned out the way they did. Jacob and his sordid past, and the other two dead. Rebecca's eyes narrowed, and even in front of her grandson, Rebecca slapped Celeste across the face. How dare you? You don't know anything about my children and their childhood. Jacob interrupted. Mother, what the devil is wrong with you? It's all right, Jacob, it's all right, Celeste said to her husband. This is why you should still be in that asylum. This is insanity you have in you, Jacob shouted. Caroline, baby Gabriel's new governess and sign language tutor, entered just seconds before the slap. uh, she she curiously and quietly watched the family unravel in front of her, carefully recording every angry word, to then pass along to her snooping reporter brother Baxter Murphy. Really, Rebecca, you shouldn't have done that, Caston said, patting Rebecca on her back. She knows better. She really knows better, Rebecca replied. I swear to God, if you ever lay a hand on her again, Jacob began. You'll what, Jacob? Have me arrested and accused of shooting you? Have me taken to an insane asylum? Have me killed? Kill someone and pin it on me? Dirty my name around the village? Any of that? All of that? Rebecca replied, naming all of Jacob's past crimes. Jacob shifted uncomfortably in his clothes. Rebecca continued, just know that I am not someone who you'll be able to play with anymore. Those days are done, and I have returned and will continue to be the mistress of this house and of this family's company. Understand that. All right, let's just cool off. The boys don't need to hear any arguing, Casper said, surprising the group as being the mediator. They all agreed to calm down and let the only fire in the room be the one at the fireplace below the painting of Albert Lord hanging above them. Suddenly a blood-curdling scream came from the foyer just outside the cherrywood drawing room, then a thud of a body hitting the floor. It was Jane, the head household, who came to the door, and it was thrusted open. Her heart almost stopped at the horrific sight at the person on the other door. The oxygen became thin all around her, and the shock, and Jane faded into the cold marble floor. The scream was so intense, it sounded as she had been slashed in the throat. The group in the drawing room, alarmed by the sounds then heard footsteps coming from the marble floor of the Terramore, coming closer and closer to the cherrywood drawing room, and then a shadow fell outside the doorway. Jacob stood in front of Celeste, and his son, Corey, and baby Gabriel stood up from their soft chair of the corner. She squeezed him tightly, fearing what was about to turn around the door. Rebecca and Caspian, too, froze in place, unsure of what had sounded like an attack in the foyer. Had now some sort of intruder was just steps away from entering the drawing. Then the person who made the Jane faint revealed themselves in the doorway in the drawing room. Caroline screamed in shock at the sight of the person. Celeste gasped. Rebecca fainted in Caspian's arms. Jacob's eyes widened in shock. Caroline's scream alerted Johnston and Jonathan, and Jacqueline, who were getting dressed up in his room. What the devil was that? Jacqueline suddenly felt a tug on her heart. Something wasn't right. There was a presence in the house, something that felt different, something that felt dangerous, like a ticking time bomb. The two rushed to the top of the stairs, but then Jacqueline pulled back and hid back in the bedroom, letting Jonathan go out alone. The dangerous feeling Jacqueline was getting told not to step foot out into the hallway or go downstairs. She was unsafe, and truly it was all her fault. And there she was, in the glowing light of the fireplace in the drawing room, was the very tired, the very dirty, and very smelly, very cold, and very much alive Jordan Lord, Evie Jordan Lord, fresh from her grave. Her nails broken, and what was left of them had dirt chacked underneath. Her face was scratched from broken bits of debris from her coffin and fell on her as Sebastian desperately busted through the lid to save her. Her life was wet and melted too much from the cold snow fell on her when the coffin was opened. She was freed. She smelled of sweat, and most of the long, disturbing days inside the coffin, 6 feet underground. Those horribly deathly moments in her grave left her shaken, traumatized, most of all furious. She was breathing heavy, her heart was pounding, and she walked steadily into the hushed drawing room of her horrified and shocked in-laws. Evie stared each of them in the eye as she were a mother tigress searching for her lost pup in the middle of a pack of hyenas. But then, like a ray of light bursting through a shadowy rain cloud, there he was, little Gabriel. Evie's frozen heart instantly warmed to see the beautiful face of her child she adored, but the thawing of Evie's body and heart was short-lived. She was there to find the person who did this to her. Something inside of her, something in her heart and her womanly instincts told her the one who did this to her was at Terramore. She felt in every cell of her body that she'd find the guilty party in the very halls of the house where Evie once lived with Sebastian, as if somehow made her mold her miserable life into Evie's by taking her place there. Finally, after several moments of shocking silence, back from the grave, Evie opened her mouth and spoke to the gobsmacked Lord family. Where is that bitch? Where is Jacqueline Gray? And that's the end. Look, really, really good. I'm going to talk to John Philip Bedcourt about all this. Really, really, really good. Guys, go check out Benight, Beguile, Book 5, Chapter 16, Lobo de Lua, which Moonwolf. So that's what that means. You guys have a good day.